Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuri, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. How does a sexless marriage affect men? And this is part 4, and we've covered quite a lot this week. Yesterday, I had to do a different type of episode, but this is the last piece, but it's not the final piece because there's so many other things I would like to cover in this series. But just so I don't fatigue the audience with one subject, I decided to finish it off here. And same time, if you want to learn more how to figure out how to deal with a sexless relationship, I've got a free training that I have for you guys where you can go to www.thrivingtribesmen.com/free training, and it's going to take you to free training. It's going to ask you to put your email in, and then as soon as you put your email in and go to the next page, you'll be going straight into a training. So like I said, it's going to give you all the tools that you need to start actually changing your sexless relationship. So with that out of the way, today we're going to be talking about coping mechanisms within the relationship and relationship satisfaction, because those are the drivers to getting you to a place where you are trying to find some sort of way of making sense of a sexless relationship. And one thing I know for a fact for many guys is that when you start experiencing the loneliness and start experiencing the lack of affection, we tend to then find other ways to try and satisfy ourselves. And the weird part about it is that way before you met somebody, way before you started when you started discovering your sexual desire and started wanting to have sex initially, so imagine when they were 13, 14, whatever, and then you started getting old enough to experiment in terms of masturbating, and then when you discovered masturbation, then all of a sudden you were pretty much obsessed. Those were probably your sexual discovery days, as well as your most lonely days. So when it comes to communicating your sexuality, communicating yourself as a potential suitor, most people wouldn't be able to know how to do that. There's some people that naturally were girls around them, but by the time you get to sort of 15, 16, that's when you're a little bit more dialed in. Maybe you've got more interactions. Maybe you've got girlfriends by association. And even then, because you live in your parents' house and you don't have your own place, the logistics of actually having sex is extremely difficult. So it becomes something that it's not easy to do, and you always resort to masturbation. So this thing becomes this thing that is sort of like for filling in space, or for dealing with the lack of sex. And this thing has already been there before you met this woman. So when you now find yourself in a sexless relationship, you find yourself regressing back to that sort of period. Now, there's nothing wrong with masturbation. In fact, I will tell you right now that I use masturbation tactically. What do I mean by that? Is that we tend to be seductive, me and my wife, and sometimes because of the logistics, the only time that we can have sex for us in our relationship is on the weekends. And during the week, we will be very playful, we will be very seductive, and there are some times where I'll be ravenous, almost wanting to get laid, but just because of logistics, it's impossible. But one of the things is that when I do have an erection, I do have blue balls. I don't know if any of you are aware of that term, but it's when you're about to have sex or you don't have sex, it can be painful at the testicles. And I found that does affect me when I go to the gym. So I then masturbate in order to just make sure that I don't get blue balls. So for me, it's tactical. And I think that's the sort of what you measure too. If you are going to masturbate, it has to be when there is opportunities to have sex, and the opportunities to have sex are she's invested in having sex, and so on and so forth. The bedtimes to masturbate are when she is not interested at all, and you are feeling lonely, and in you replacing loneliness, you then masturbate, or you've been rejected, or there's any negative feeling around sex that you are trying to escape from. That is very bad. And I can tell you right now that if every time you masturbate and you feel a sense of guilt or a sense of sadness and loneliness, that is a very terrible thing, because again, that's where it's more destructive than it is. I mean, for you, it's a relief, but on the long run, it's more of a destructive behavior in terms of moving you forward to getting out of a sexless relationship. So it becomes more important to understand, like, in terms of coping, and I'm saying masturbating because I think that's majority of people do so, but some people actually go on to other things, like they would actually go and see prostitutes, or because I've spoken to some guys, that's what they've done in the past. So going to see prostitutes, and that's how they sort of try and keep sane of the thing, because they just want some female connection. They want some sort of it's a coping mechanism. Some people have gone on to have girlfriends, so a side chick, for example. And that's a way of coping, and we all know that those ones are quite destructive. I think with prostitution, with prostitution it can be disastrous, especially depending on which country you live in, whether and how legal that is. If you got caught with a prostitute, again, the legal implications of that, and how that is destructive for your family is massive. So again, with a side chick, it comes with its own issues, because obviously the worst thing about a side chick, and I think is the worst thing about a side chick, is that a side chick is going to require time. And I always say this, there is no pussy that's for free. So the longer that you go to your side chick, the more she's going to want you to establish something more long term. And that, again, will backfire on your relationship. So all those as coping mechanisms there's no good outcome that comes from it, and those are just coping mechanisms for sex. But then there's other ones that would double up. So for me personally, I would masturbate and watch porn when I felt lonely, and it wasn't enough just to do that, because of course you got this sense of sadness, sense of feeling lonely, and so on. So it wasn't enough just to bust a nut. It was more, I would bust a nut and then have chocolate, and then I would eat. And so it was real, I used to call it the chains of addiction, that it wasn't just one thing that made it I was addicted to. I had sort of several things that I would be trying to do in order to cope with the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of shame, the feeling of all these negative feelings that I was feeling around being in a sexless relationship. So it became very important for me to understand that I needed to change the relationship, and the energy I was using to cope for the relationship, if I utilized it in order to change the relationship, it would make a better sense. In fact, I was prepared that, okay, if I put up all this effort and at some point I discover that there's nothing I can do to change the relationship, at least I've tried every single thing, and then maybe it might be a case that I'm now moving on to find at least find myself within a different relationship, or at least enjoy a different relationship, not this one. And meaning that I was going to go for a divorce decision. So anyways, it's very important for us to understand what are those coping mechanisms that we're doing, at least, but any coping mechanism that's coming from a negative perspective is going to be massively destructive on your relationship. In fact, none of it. I know you're looking after yourself and you're trying to take care of yourself, and there's nothing wrong with it if it's coming from a place of it's coming from a good place. Now you're probably wondering, well, I've already been doing this for a long time. That's all I know. It keeps me sane for a bit. What do I need to do in order to start changing things? And like I said in the beginning, one of the things that you need to go and look at is this free training that I've made for you. It is definitely going to take you through what you need to do. So it's going to take you about sexual discomfort, what that looks like, and then also teach you something about how to start communicating your sexuality, but a little bit deeper than what we've talked about in the podcast. And then talks about in fact, talks about attraction, and it also talks about seduction. So it tells you, and it's going to be the mechanisms that you're going to need to start implementing within your relationship, so your partner starts actually coming back towards. In fact, I think on that training, we talked about attraction gap, which is an interesting one. And I've just got a voice note from one of my clients, and he was talking about how he was disqualifying himself, and that led to actual sex, which is absolutely amazing, because again, he's implementing what I've been saying. And this year alone, it's been massive for him. He's had more sexual interactions in this 1 year alone than he's had in the past few years. So again, it's not just me that's speaking to him, but he's just somebody who's a monster in implementing. He listens to what I say, and then he implements, and he's just seeing it work. So again, when you go to this free training, a lot of the stuff that you're going to be learning is contrary to what people are teaching out there, but is very, very important. Because again, one thing, I was speaking to a therapist yesterday. I said a lot of people's teachings, or what they're teaching out there, is in response to the woman. And it's what do I mean by that? It's in response to, she's feeling stressed, so you need to do this. She's feeling lonely, so therefore you should do this. You should take her out for date nights. It's in response, and by its very nature puts you in a follower position. It doesn't make you a fucking leader, and all of that makes it, again, this is the reason why none of it fucking works. But if you deal with the sense of, I need to deal with sexual discomfort, and then I need to attract, I need to then seduce. When you start seeing it from that perspective, you are taking dominance, or you're taking the place of a leader, and you're also taking a place where you are changing the environment so that it suits the conditions for you guys to seduce each other, which is extremely more powerful, because again, you're not trying to do sex to her, but you're actually trying to invite her towards sex, which is completely different. Because I think a lot of people are pushing towards having sex, like, I'm going to do this X, Y, and Z in order to create a condition for sex. No, in fact, that's what you're meant to be doing. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then she should have sex with me, whereas you should be creating the condition where it's just okay. It makes it okay for her to then give in to seduction and attraction. So this is why there's some nuance to it, but it's extremely important on how you actually approach it. A lot of you guys still find yourself struggling within those interactions because you are trying to cater to who she is. And I'm saying this because, like I said, if you are already in a place where you're coping and you're deep into watching porn and masturbation and whatever I've mentioned, eating terribly and watching a lot of Netflix and so on. Again, all these are destructive behaviors that are not very good for you. They have to be done in moderation. They have to be done, like for me, like I said, masturbation is a very tactical thing. It's just more that I have a comfortable journey to the gym. I don't want to be in the gym and having painful testicles. That's the only reason why I masturbate. And again, I only masturbate when our relationship is healthy, and I actually know that at some point we are going to be having sex, which is probably on the weekend. So again, this is where there's the shift. And now I'm saying that not to boast or make you feel like you're inferior. I'm saying that as a measure that this is what you need in order to masturbate. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're having negative associations with it or after it, or you're masturbating in order to escape negative feelings and emotions, all of that is very destructive. It's very, very bad. And I don't want that for any of you guys. So I'm going to knock it on the head here. Thank you very much, guys. We'll finish the series here. If you want to learn a lot more about this, I want you to go to www.thrivingtribesmen.com/free training, and then you'll be able to actually go through some of the things that will start changing your relationship. And it will also speak to you about how we can fast track your results as well. So it's going to be very exciting. Go over there and you check it out. Thank you.